Okay, so good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the DuPont Summit 2023. My name is FNU Hera, and I am the program coordinator of Policy Study Organizations. And then today we have the Dr. Adrian Shikovchi. And then I would love to hand over the panel to him so that he can discuss about the today topic, and then he can start the presentations. So the doctors, hand over to you.
Thank you, Idris. Appreciate that. Good morning, everyone. My name is Arten Shaikovci. I'm the director of the American Counterterrorism Targeting and Resilience Institute. We are a research center focused on extremist manifestation as it happens online across different extremist groups, far right, far left, militant jihadi groups. So today I will be talking a little bit about the exploitation of what it's referred to as artificial intelligence, generative AI by extremist and terrorist groups. I'll try to bring some examples and maybe offer some recommendations as well. Again, I'm so thankful and grateful to PSO for the invitation, and I'm glad to be back here again for the second round of presentation as well. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to go ahead and start sharing my slides here. Okay, I'm assuming everything looks fine on your end.
Yes.
Perfect. So as I said earlier, the focus of my presentation today is to look at the sort of extremist and terrorist exploitation of technologies, right? What it's out there and how the technology exploitation looks like in real life as well. So on top of that, I'll also talk a little bit about this sort of human-led intelligence plus technology and how they're combined actually to counter extremist content on social media platforms and so on. So obviously challenges related to extremist and terrorist use of technology are vast and varied. But you know, there's few things we need to consider before we get into the sort of more hands-on real-life examples of their manifestation as well. So terrorist exploitation of technology by terrorist group is not necessarily a new phenomenon, right? So if you look at cases, if you look at Al-Qaeda, if you look at ISIS, they've had one of the very first jihadi encryption tools, Asr al-Mujahideen. They rely on Tor browsers, which is really specific to how they, again, engage in deep and dark webs as well, but also share the content as well. The CyberGhost VPN and so on. Again, so the user exploitation of technology is not necessarily new on their end as well. One thing that I would also put as a caveat here is that while terrorist groups are relying on technology to the extent we are, right, or exploiting the very same technology, a lot of their processes, a lot of their data collection and dissemination processes, they're not necessarily sophisticated in the sense that, you know, sometimes they're being portrayed. So obviously they relied on automated data processes, automated data collection, dissemination tools, bots, right, being one of the most common, I would say, in that sense as well. There's a few, I would say, most recent concerning trends that are arising in their exploitation of technologies. And one of them, obviously, is the generative AI. So basically, it's, you know, just as a refresher, it is basically, you know, the sort of algorithm or models that are focused on generating new content as opposed to I'm sorry, they're focused on generating original content as opposed to analyzing existing or sharing existing content as well. So the content that's being shared through generative AI includes use of images, videos, different text, music as well. And that, again, it's considered a problematic, and I'll talk about that in a few minutes as well. So the second aspect of threat of generative AI, obviously, is what refers to as threat to hashing. So we know that most social media and tech companies rely on this sort of hash databases. Basically, hashing involves this sort of unique digital fingerprints or codes that refer to hashes that are of harmful terrorist content, and they're being stored by the tech companies, and they're again being shared across different social media companies to quickly identify and remove this sort of mentioned content as well. So what are the threats to hashing, traditional hashing efforts that we know right now? So one is that generative AI is leading to this sort of creation of modified and altered version of the known terrorist and extremist content as well. So what that happened is that sometimes we have generation of new files, or could be videos, could be images as well, that are again different in terms of their digital fingerprint, and again makes it difficult for those hash-based systems that tech companies rely on to detect that kind of content as well. So the second threat to hashing, current hashing efforts is the detection, right? So what AI is being used by terrorist groups obviously is to create a content that is different from the one that is already flagged by the social media companies as well. So again, that is a problem as well, because the modified versions do not necessarily match existing hashes and create problem again when it comes to curbing, detecting, and removing potentially that kind of content from social media spaces. The third one is what we refer to as scale and speed of through which the sort of content moves around that's being relied on generative AI as well. So it does create content at a very quick, a high speed that is really difficult it makes it very difficult to engage in takedown efforts, and also overwhelms the existing hashing system as well. So just to put things in retrospect, most recently, if you look at the most recent Israeli-Palestine conflict, we see thousands and thousands of AI-generated memes, videos that are being pushed out there, which makes it really extremely difficult to keep up again with the pace at which they're being developing as well. So again, that's that example that is not confined to the most recent Israeli-Palestine conflict, but we also have the very same manifestation take place in the context of Ukraine and generally within all extremist organizations when it comes to sharing their content as well. So another thing, I would say this is one of the most concerning, I would say, long-term issues is the adaptability or hashing, what we refer to as the fluidity, the ability of the existing models that are being used by terrorist group to be trained and to become more sophisticated in terms of avoiding detection of that kind of content as well. So basically, similar to how deep learning works, the generated content by terrorist organizations could be trained again to more effectively evade detection, and also refine again in the manner in which they share content and how they share the content in the social media spaces as well. So these are the sort of more recent trends that we see that could as well be used again when it comes to circumventing some of the existing safeguards against that kind of content on social media spaces. Going back with some of the examples, obviously, how that actually looks like. So we know that AI is being used again to generate instructions and manual how to securely utilize generative AI as well. So this is important to kind of highlight, is that a lot of terrorist organizations, extremist organizations or sympathizers, wannabe jihadis, do not necessarily generate sophisticated technology, but they're very good again at putting instructions on how they can be created, how they can be exploited, and how they could be pushed out there for their purposes as well. So obviously, propaganda images created using AI, we've seen this across far-right militant jihadi groups, far-left groups as well. I mentioned earlier that the speed and the quality of some of the images that arises on a daily basis, it's really difficult to catch up at so many levels as well. Obviously, these are some of the, I would say, under-researched trends that we see as well. Again, these are mostly claims. We have not necessarily seen that play out extensively, I should say. Maybe these are isolated cases where certain extremist and terrorist groups are claiming to have generated or to have created AI-based automatic speech recognition systems to transcribe propaganda, let's say, from one language to the other, for example, from Arabic to English or other languages as well. So they are playing with automated speech recognitions that rely on an AI in some sense as well. Again, when we don't see much of that, mostly claims, I should say, in many cases as well. There's also a lot of, aside from instructions and manuals that are being put out there on how the AI could be generated, there are also images that are put on certain apps. I don't want to obviously mention here specifically what apps are, but they're very easily downloadable through Google Play Store as well. So there is this sort of storage or repository to which, in most cases, those vulnerable audiences that engage with extremist content, terrorist content, may be transported or referred to look for those kind of content as well. So this sort of, I would say, one of the last and more worrying trends that we see nowadays, obviously, are the repositories of extremist and terrorist content. So think about that as digital libraries that exist on online. Let's put it on the internet, when individuals can, could be a layman person, could be a sympathizer, could be, wannabe jihadis, that could very easily go download a piece of content and generate content of their own, right? And then use that for the propaganda purposes as well. So I have a very brief demonstration here of some of the things that we have been collecting on social media places at our center as well. So obviously, this is the sort of a rundown of some of the key findings that we have that to kind of help, again, shed light in real life examples on how things work as well. So we do index a lot of content as well. So in terms of trends, as I said earlier, there's a lot of share and drop venues, content bots that are being pushed within social media platforms, generally speaking, aside from AI that I spoke earlier. But a lot of jihadi content obviously exists out there in terms of the digital library. There are a lot of links, websites that exist. They're really difficult to monitor, and even once they're detected, they do reemerge in different forms. So URLs are actually being refurbished all the time in different capacity as well. These are a few examples of the websites. I put the website address here, but a lot of them are probably not active. Now we have access to the ones that are active, but just to show the sophistication of those websites and digital repositories that exist online. This is one of the websites that had, in 20 plus languages, serving militant jihadi content as well. So these are some of the trends. We look at those websites. Obviously, we could see the page views per month, per day, right, on a daily basis. It depends on what our research interests are. We also do the web analytics, looking what the traffic flow within those jihadi websites as well. Again, this is just for demonstration purposes, some of the examples that I put out there. And obviously, there is a significant amount of links. These are, again, some examples that I put out there in which militant jihadi content could be found circulating online. So some of that obviously is blurred. We don't want necessarily to make it public, but again, we're talking about hundreds and thousands of pieces of information circulating on a daily basis. So, a part of what we also do, obviously, is that we look at some of the features that are available for us to collect this data in real time, analyzing, engaging in social network analysis, and again, trying to grasp as much as we can information on that sense as well. So a few things that I would point out here. Obviously, relying on technology for detection and removal of extremist content in light of what we see, especially how terrorist and extremist organizations are themselves exploiting technologies. There's few things obviously to consider. One thing that it is crucial in that sense is that we need to, and this is what we do at our organization, obviously, is to be able to, as an alternative, right, to solely relying on technology for data monitoring on social media platform, is to be able to index platforms that host extremist and terrorist content, and this is what we do, us and our colleagues, in some way as well. Look at the web traffic. Basically, what are the trends within certain geographic areas when it comes to extremist content? Look at this sort of trends analysis, right? We utilize partner technology to look at the trends, how certain extremist content is being viewed, how it's being interacted with, how it's being engaged with in many levels as well. A crucial part of what we do online, obviously, is looking at social networks. Again, obviously, these are some of the blurred social networks that we've been following that give us a better sense of who are the influencers, who are the key individuals, organizations, sympathizers within the social media place. Another important aspect, again, you rely on some of our partner technologies to do this sort of trends analysis, but also historical analysis of the content that's being pushed out there. So we could very easily deduce where that certain source was initially generated and how that it moved, across this sort of dissemination chain on social media places as well. Very important key aspect of also what we do, obviously, is utilizing technologies done through our partners, where we are able to look at the content manipulation, looking at deepfakes, looking at cheap fakes, looking at image manipulations, to kind of, again, stay abreast or stay in line with what also terrorist groups are doing in that space as well. This is very crucial and very important aspect of doing that. So just for demonstration purpose, and we have published this publicly, this is one of the images that were circulated most recently within the Ukraine-Russia conflict, where certain images were being manipulated to showcase as though ISIS is actually exists within the ranks of Ukrainian military. Obviously, we utilize technology through our partners to discern whether the image was manipulated or not. The same is being applied to deepfakes. They're obviously being pushed out there at many levels as well. So again, a few things, again, just to reiterate: indexing of information, I would say on a daily basis, and tracking information on a daily basis, looking at the trends analysis, what platforms prevail, what individuals within those platforms are more active, looking at social networks, obviously the interaction between individuals, but also the groups within those social networks as well, and obviously utilizing the very same technology to not only collect big data, but also analyze some of the content that, again, could be very difficult for layman eye to analyze. For example, I mentioned image manipulation, deep fakes that are being one of the most, I would say, most dangerous and more difficult ones to, again, explore from that sense as well. One thing, obviously, to keep in mind is that these are some of the individual level efforts that we have, that I've tried to showcase within this 20-25 minutes, that is being done through us or through partnerships with other organizations as well. But there's already existing efforts that they're being kind of pushed. They're being implemented by some of the large tech consortiums and tech organizations, but also nonprofit and other research organizations throughout the United States and beyond as well. So some of you, again, just as a hypothetical to put out there, to give a sense of what's actually being done out there on the social media space, I would say a lot has been done, again, obviously, in detecting the content, but much more remains to be done in terms of real-time proactive detection and removal of this sort of content. So that's why, again, in one of our line of research, and I would say one of the drives and motivations behind the research that we do, is the ability to engage in sort of real-time analysis and real-time extraction, data collection of the content that's really important out there. So what are some of the efforts, obviously, that are being done, they're being carried over by different organizations? Obviously, I talked a little bit about content removal, taking actions, obviously, to remove extremist content from different platforms, looking at this sort of helping other organizations that may potentially face threat by extremist and terrorist groups, to help them identify and remove extremist content on their platforms as well. This is particularly important when we talk about small to mid-sized organizations who do not necessarily have the human resources and capacities to monitor, right, to the extent that, let's say, YouTube's or Facebook's or the Telegrams of today can, right, when it comes to doing the monitoring that kind of content as well. I talked about that a little bit about hashes, right? So these are basically databases of existing extremist content that could be very easily detected and also shared for further removal as well. Content detection, obviously utilizing advanced technology to detect and flag extremist content. This is very important, but we also we need to have better insight, I say more insight into what is the outcome? How do we measure the effectiveness of content detection and removal technologies they're being advertised out there as well? So the second aspect, obviously, is what we refer to as these sort of counter messaging efforts, or counter extremist messaging and initiatives that are being pushed out there, basically utilizing data to deliver personalized ads, right, that speak to again, specific a terrorist group, but also that help vulnerable individuals that helps vulnerable individuals dissuade them from joining terrorist groups as well. Engagement campaigns, obviously, engaging in this sort of more interactive online campaigns to promote positive and constructive discussions, whether this could be in the form of directly delegitimizing extremist or terrorist organizations, or maybe just offering alternative viewpoints as opposed to focusing on terrorist organizations on how to again how to counter extremist and terrorist groups out as well. Obviously, collaboration is very important. That's being done across different platforms as well. This again takes the form of collaborating with influential individuals to promote alternative viewpoints and discourage extremist content. Again, these do not necessarily have to be individuals, maybe organizations that are pushing this sort of content, this kind of content again out there that's very important in that space as well. So the very first point obviously is, again, it's also tied to the technology. A lot is being invested on the part of social media companies, tech companies, again, in this sort of course, a lot of that is AI driven to identify toxic language that happens on social media spaces and platforms. So basically relying on this sort of scoring of the impact that certain comments can lead to a toxic language in the social media space as well. Obviously, the scoring of the impact of comments, it's very important. But again, that's also relevant to the extent we have this sort of access to the information, or we're able to identify information in that sense as well. One of the most recent, I would say, trends that are really important for us to consider is that this is also happening within the far right organizations, especially where we have this sort of flood of information. Telegram would be one of them, where there's so much information, disinformation that's being pushed out there that makes it difficult to differentiate the real threat from the perceived threat, right? And there's actually a jargon that's being pushed out there. It's referred to, and again, it's not a term that I made, but it's a term that's actually been included even within the academic circles. It's referred to as the shit posting. Basically, that's so much content is being pushed out there. Again, some of that may be truthful, some not, but then again, they collide within the larger ecosystem of content that makes it very difficult for researchers, law enforcement to differentiate what is real and not, what is fake and not, what is accurate and not, right? So again, those are some of the things that we need to consider. So lastly, I have only a few minutes left, is again, some of you may potentially have seen or interacted directly with what we refer to as deep fakes. Obviously, those are very worrying trends. Those are mostly referred to videos that are being manipulated to showcase certain, a world leader, powerful individual, or any layman individual. The most recent example of a deep fake that was widely circulated was showcasing a president of Ukraine, Zelensky, and again, we know how that was manipulated, but also how fast it was shared online and how much damage could have been done had it not been detected proactively as well. So that is one important aspect, but from the extremist and terrorist standpoint, we do not necessarily see a large-scale application of deep fakes on social media spaces as well. And when we do see those kind of when we do see the exploitation of deepfakes or utilization of deepfakes on social media platforms, they're not necessarily sophisticated, right? They're very easily detectable to the layman eye, to a layman human being as well. So I would say, again, that is maybe promising long-term, obviously. Then we do have, to a certain extent, deepfake technologies to counter AI technologies to counter deepfakes as well, but not all deepfake technologies that currently exist are able to detect all sorts of image, video manipulations online. For example, you cannot necessarily apply deepfake technology to also detect cheap fakes, right? So we know cheap fakes are those that are very, very easy, done very poorly, right, in that sense as well. But the dangers with that is that, again, it's very important to focus on exploitation of deepfakes by social media companies, but also their application, right? So we know they utilize videos and they push it out there in social media spaces. But hypothetically speaking, what if they were able to, in real time, manipulate images online? Imagine, we've had so many protests throughout the world within the recent Palestine-Israel conflict. So imagine if those deepfakes could be applied in real time to manipulate with images, actions, reactions of protesters throughout the world, right in real time. That we could have severe damages done in that sense as well. So the real time application, I would say, would be more dangerous as opposed to the ones that we currently see and share as well. So are individuals reacting, and how they're reacting to deepfakes on social media platforms is really important for us to consider and study. We don't have a lot of data out there. We know there's some data emerging research, again, on the quality of the deepfakes that are being pushed out there, but we do not necessarily have a lot of data on how individuals react to that kind of content in terms of shares, in terms of their engagement in social media places as well. Problematic is the sort of aspect where individuals, and we've seen that across both far right and militant jihad and far left groups, where individuals may be aware that that certain video is a deep fake, but they still decide to share that, they still decide to engage that. So even if sometimes the content is not necessarily a fake one, we've seen individuals, especially on the far right, on the far end of the extremist trajectory, when they actually choose to believe it's a fake one because they know that deepfakes already exist. So the mere existence of deepfakes and the fact that they know that they exist, it's argument enough for them to reject any kind of accurate information as well. So again, it's a very profound psychological game and profound psychological unfoldings, right, that we have to understand in terms of user-based engagement on the social media spaces as well. So I have about 1 minute left. So again, just to wrap up very quickly, as I pointed out at the very beginning, yes, the exploitation of technologies by social media, by terrorist and extremist group is real, but we have seen their exploitation of technology in the past as well. They're very reactive. I'm sorry, they're very proactive in how they utilize or exploit that kind of technology. The larger threats that we see nowadays is to the existing technology, existing AI-driven technologies that we have that are being implemented by tech companies that need to be taken into account. Obviously, the hashes, the existing database of extremist content that's being stored, it's one of the most important ones. The digital repositories, that this is, I would say, one of the most difficult aspect of trying to curb extremist and terrorist content as well. We have started, ourselves, at our center, and our colleagues as well at other places are, again, storing this kind of content, but we're talking about thousands and thousands of pieces of file information, videos, images that are available on this sort of on the internet. Again, I'm using it as a general term, where anyone could go and download and interact and disseminate that kind of content. So again, this is a tall order in the line of in the sequence of potential dangers that emanate from extremist content as well. So being proactive, indexing, registering, again, engaging in social network analysis, and also looking at the patterns in real time and more proactively is one of the, I would say, good complements, or not necessarily alternatives, but good complements to existing efforts to solely rely on AI or artificial intelligence to curb extremist content and terrorist content online as well. So thank you again for your time. I'll at this moment stop my share.
Sure, thank you so much. And I really wanted to express my sincere gratitude to your enlightening presentation, right, on the combating online harms, particularly in the dynamic interplays between AI and human intelligence and evolving extremists and the terrorist trends. So your insights were not only informative, but also the thought-provoking. So thank you once again for sharing your expertise and contributing to the deeper understanding of this critical issue.
Thank you, Idris. It's my pleasure. And I want to thank also the PSO for the opportunity to present.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.